He controlled every part of my life. I needed his permission for everything. When I could sleep, when I could eat, when I could use the bathroom, when I can go to my room, and even whether I can buy tampons. He created a life where nothing was mine, and I lived in constant fear because his moods could determine my right to exist. Hey, what's up? It's your girl Neek, and you're tuned in to Neek at Night. And tonight, I'm going to be reading some of the victim impact statements in the Sean Diddy trial and going over why the government is using some of these who were not even a part of his charges to get him sentenced to a more heftier sentence. These are statements of people who were listed as victims in his case, and they are basically trying to get the judge to keep him in jail and secure the 11-year sentence that they are requesting. In a separate video, I went over Cassie's letter and all of those things, so make sure to check that out. Now, in this video, this is going to be some of the people that work for him. Now, there was a girl who testified under the pseudonym Mia. Mia, in her letter, she talks about how she has PTSD, how she has to go in hiding, how she's not able to work. She wakes up in night terror, in night sweats. She talks about how Diddy SA'd her, how she used to have to fend for food and couldn't get food on her own. She had to ask for permission. She outlined this really, really brutal letter, and these are some of the things that the prosecution wants her to say at his sentencing date. So they have announced through their letters to the judge that they want Mia to testify and give her accounts before the judge hands down his sentencing. They claim that she was credible, and they feel as though her accounts of how she was working for him and the things that she went through is very, very key in the judge hearing the impact on the sentence he needs to hand down. Now, Diddy's team is fighting back, and they have submitted letters where they want her not to testify. Diddy's lawyers are asking for her not to testify because they're saying that, number one, she testified under a pseudonym. She had a fake name, a fake voice. They said that she wasn't believable. She told a bunch of lies on the stand, and so on and so forth. Let's scroll down on the document that they submitted to the judge in saying that they do not want her testifying. They said, simply, she is not a victim of anything. She had adult consensual contact with Sean Combs on a handful of occasions, and as her many writings show, held him in the highest regard for years afterwards. How do we know this? The same way the jury knew, because her testimony was blatantly incredible in every way, as was the testimony of so many of the government witnesses. Moreover, that she is so eager to return to court when she plainly does not have to, and is not even entitled to, puts her proffered fear of testifying at trial into clear relief. This was a show for her. She got to lie. She got to testify with a false identity. She got to try out her fake voice for a jury of savvy New Yorkers, but she also saw the consequences of lying to a jury. They don't believe you. So now the jurors have returned to their lives, and she can testify without scrutiny. She wants to come back still under a fake name, still with the false narrative to further sully these proceedings. Now, in response to Diddy's team saying that she was incredible, she just was making up lies, the prosecution clapped back and they said, how do we know that the jury didn't believe her? They state that the jury was never asked whether or not they believed her or didn't believe her, and they believe that she's credible. They said the jury was not asked to make any findings as to Mia's credibility regarding particular instances of the defendant's violence or abusive treatment of others. We cannot speculate as to why the jury acquitted on the RICO count. It says, but as defense counsel well knows, the jury could have believed every single thing Mia said about the defendant's violence towards her and others, some of which was corroborated by other testimony and evidence in the case, and still have acquitted for other reasons, such as finding that the enterprise was not proven beyond a reasonable doubt. To draw any factual inference about Mia's credibility based on the jury's acquittal is not only wrong, but is not allowed under the law. So they're saying, listen, y'all saying that she's not credible, We never asked the jury whether they thought she was credible or not, even though they did not find him guilty of the RICO. Now, when Mia testified in the Diddy trial, if some of you guys know, I attended several weeks of the Diddy trial. However, when she testified, I wasn't there. When I came back to the Diddy trial, I wanted to know about each person that testified when I wasn't there. Almost every content creator, no matter what side they were on, if they were team Diddy needs to go to jail, or if they were team free Diddy, he didn't do no wrong, many of these people said that Mia was hiding behind her hair. They said that she was talking in a weird voice. They were saying that she did not seem credible or believable. Now, there were a couple who said like every person got on the stand was like a credible person, but these are the same people that said Don Richards did good and I was there and she did absolutely horrible. I thought that she was going to do really good on the stand, and when I saw her testimony in person, it was a mess. So there's that. But the majority, I talked to tons and tons of content creators. The majority of them, their sentiment was that she just didn't give them a good vibe. Now, you could take that information with what you will. I'm going to read through her victim impact statement in this video. We're going to read everything that she's claiming and alleging against Diddy. And we're going to see some of why the government wants her to speak at sentencing and why they're pressing so hard for her to speak before the judge hands down his sentence. There were other victim impact statements that we're also going to go over. And there's another woman who created a letter, and she also states that she's afraid for her life. She thinks that he's going to delete her. She talks about how she has to navigate through this world, all of the things that he's done, all of the things that she's witnessed. It was a lady by the name of Chef Jordan. Now, she was supposed to testify at the trial, and her name came up a lot. However, she didn't end up testifying, but she gave a very, very lengthy impact statement of everything she endured. She said that Diddy groomed Cassie. She talked about the rugs. She talked about an incident where she got into it with Diddy where they had to tussle. She talked about how he would just be a menace to everyone. And she basically expressed how she thought that he was going to delete her and end her life, and she still thinks that if he's let out that he's going to end her life, and she is requesting that he gets the max. We're gonna go through these letters and you guys tell me what you think. They are saying that he was hell on wheels, and they are saying that they are afraid for their lives if he is let out. Let's get into these letters and y'all let me know what y'all think. But if you guys have not hit the like button, make sure you hit the like button, because we're not gonna have none of that where you just listening but you ain't supporting. I mean, I went through a lot to read through these letters, make sure that I'm giving y'all the information. And y'all know y'all can always support via my website and my Cash App. Now, if you are somebody that don't got D-Control, I have adult goodies on my site, and I definitely have some male goodies for the men. I discounted them at a very, very good rate. With that being said, let's get into this. So she says, Your Honor, I'm writing you on behalf of my younger self. The little girl who once dreamed without fear, who believed the world was full of possibility, who had faith in the goodness of people, and who trusted that her hard work, big heart, and integrity could carry her toward a bright and meaningful future. That little girl is gone. She was buried alive by an abuser, trapped in a world of terror, abuse, humiliation, and coercive control. This letter has been excruciating to write. Other than during my testimony, I've never had the courage to discuss my use publicly. It feels impossible to describe, as I'm slowly just beginning to unravel the tangled web of trauma myself. But I decided that it's better to try to describe the permanent damage that Sean Combs, my abuser, has caused me, rather than to remain silent any longer. I began working for my user in my early 20s after I moved to NYC with only a mattress on my car and a dream in my heart. I was made to believe it was the opportunity of a lifetime to work for him. I was young and naive. I wanted to make a name for myself. I wanted to change the world for the better through my creativity. My dream was to one day become a writer, producer, and performer. In these early years, I was hopeful and innocent. From the start, however, my user preyed on that innocence. And what I thought was a once in a lifetime opportunity gradually became a never ending nightmare. I experienced manipulation, humiliation, coercion, and violence. I was groomed, exploited, and broken down. He stripped me of my freedom, my safety, my identity, my instincts, and my autonomy. He alternated rewards and punishments to break down my self worth and instincts, creating dependency and confusion. He dangled my dreams before me like a carrot, promising opportunity, mentorship, and advancement. He controlled every part of my life. I needed his permission for everything. When I could sleep, when I could eat, when I could use the bathroom, when I can go to my room, and even whether I can buy tampons. He created a life where nothing was mine, and I lived in constant fear because his moods could determine my right to exist. Asking for compensation for my labor, including overtime requests or reimbursement requests for work related expenses, would lead to him throwing a tantrum, yelling, and sometimes throwing objects in my direction in an effort to humiliate me. He framed my request as stealing and made me ashamed to expect any income at all. Through this financial manipulation, he kept me dependent and trapped. My work for the defendant was not a job, it was captivity. His coercive control and unpredictable violence left lasting psychological scars, anxiety, hypervigilance, disassociation, self doubt, and ongoing struggle to reclaim my autonomy. Years of abuse have rewired my brain. Even today, I feel trapped in the mental and emotional patterns that he created. I live with chronic and severe PTSD, depression, and crippling anxiety. I suffer from deeply intrusive thoughts, derealization, panic attacks, night terrors, and insomnia. When I can get a few precious hours of sleep, those hours are often filled with night terrors that wake me up in a breathless sweat, screaming and crying. I awake with my heart pounding, grasping as if I'm still trapped. I have struggled to feel safe in any workplace because of my PTSD, which has resulted in a fragmented professional record, a bankruptcy application, and crippling debt. I can't go to many of the public places I once loved, concerts, festivals, clubs, without risk of having panic attack. I have struggled to set roots in any location and build a community of support for fear that my user would find me and ruin my life all over again. I avoid social media. I can't listen to music I once loved, and I can't watch many TV shows or movies, all for fear that I might unexpectedly be triggered and have to relive some of the worst moments of my life. All of this trauma was compounded by the impact of my testimony at my user's trial. The investigation and pretrial process threw me back into a world I had spent years desperately trying to suppress. I had buried so many terrible memories of use, including violence, SA, that I was forced to dig up and relive. I cannot overstate the traumatizing impact of reading his threatening emails, reviewing old photos and videos, and hearing his voice again. Every meeting felt like a hammer striking at fragile foundations of my healing. The anticipation of testifying was also horrendous. My therapy sessions were spent bracing for the unfathomable moment that I would face him in your courtroom. Instead of focusing on rebuilding my life and forging a new future, when I tried to imagine walking into a crowded courtroom and facing him, I would black out. For months, I suffered from panic attacks. My tongue swelled, my stomach dropped, my hands went cold, my legs became numb. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat. The feeling of dread and terror was so intense, I couldn't hide it. I would randomly burst into uncontrollable childlike sobs. I found myself self-isolating for fear of being a burden on the people I love. I didn't know how to ask for help. I didn't know how to say I was not okay. I had been conditioned for so many years to believe that my need was unimportant and that any emotion was forbidden. If I expressed any indication that I was suffering or unwell, I could be in imminent danger. I wanted to jump out of my skin. I felt relentlessly ashamed. There were times when I did not want to live. As a result of the defense team's tactics during my testimony, and despite my use of pseudonym, my identity has been publicized and my name is no longer my own. It is forever linked to my user's violence. My sweet, loving parents had to read horrible details about the abuse of their daughter, riddling them with anxiety and leading them to unfairly question themselves as if they could have done anything to prevent this. Everyone I have known and everyone I will meet will now know my darkest moments. Even the children in my life, my sweet niece and nephew, my loving goddaughter, and my godson, my friends' children who inspired me to tell my truth, will one day read the vile details of my youth. Although the verdict fell short of the justice I had hoped for, the defendant was still found guilty of serious crimes. What he stole from me cannot be returned. It cannot be reduced to years or money. He stole my freedom, my sense of safety, my ability to trust myself and others, and my confidence. He stole my dreams of having a stable, healthy family of my own, trajectory, and both my creative work product and creative aspirations. He stole 16 years of my life, time I should have spent developing into the independent woman I was meant to be. My life has been profoundly broken. I am pleading on behalf of my inner child, the sweet, hopeful, bright eyed girl who could not survive the defendant's abuse, for the woman I should have become who was robbed of her future. Although the verdict fell short of the justice I had hoped for, the defendant was still found guilty of serious crimes. What he stole from me cannot be returned. It cannot be reduced to years or money. He stole my freedom, my sense of safety, my ability to trust myself and others, and my confidence. He stole my dreams of having a stable, healthy family of my own, my career trajectory, and both my creative work product and creative aspirations. He stole 16 years of my life, time I should have spent developing into the independent woman I was meant to be. My life has been profoundly broken. I am pleading on behalf of my inner child, the sweet, hopeful, bright eyed girl who could not survive the defendant's abuse, and for the woman I should have become, who was robbed of her future. I am pleading for the brave victims that came forward and the countless other victims who continue to suffer and have been scared into silence. The defendant has shattered many lives, and they too deserve justice. They too deserve to live without shame or fear. Victims of psychological, and violent crimes, especially against women, are often forced to prove themselves while reliving the very trauma that destroyed them. We are questioned, doubted, humiliated, and re victimized as if surviving and coming forward to tell the story of our survival makes us suspect. We are forced to serve a life sentence of living with the consequences of the defendant's abuse every day. Finally, I am pleading on behalf of future generations who deserve a world where predators cannot escape accountability. Your Honor, I ask that you do justice through the sentence that you imposed on October 3rd, 2025. The defendant's wealth, power, and fame should not place him above the law. These forces have shielded him for too long. I ask you to deliver a sentence that reflects the full measure of harm that he has caused. The years of coercion, financial abuse, humiliation, physical and violence, and the profound trauma that he has inflicted as a result. I ask you to deliver a sentence that takes into account the ongoing danger my user poses to me and to others. A sentence that takes into account the A sentence that honors the truth, the pain, and the lives that have been destroyed. A sentence that gives us hope, protection, and justice. Please help us believe that the legal system can offer justice to innocent and vulnerable victims and those with power. And those with power, wealth, and influence cannot destroy lives without consequences. Help us believe in a world where survivors are heard, believed, and protected. Help us restore the belief that good can prevail. Help us ensure that no one else suffers as we have. Help us believe that justice can and does exist by holding our user fully accountable. Please, Your Honor, you have the power to show us the world and the future that our lives, our voices, our truth, and our humanity matter. Please help us with gratitude and respect, Mia. So that is the letter from Mia. All right, so this is a letter from Capricorn Clark. This is her victim impact statement. Let's get into it. Dear Judge Submaranian, I testified in your courtroom in this case in May 2025. As you heard, I worked for Puff from 2004 to 2012, and during that time, I got to know him very well. Since Puff fired me in 2012, he has me blacklisted from the industry, and I've had to take on multiple jobs to garner anything near my worth. Today, I am a single mother to a nonverbal autistic little boy living in Los Angeles. This ordeal has taken 14 years of my life. My career trajectory halted at 33 years old. What I lived through working for Puff, and in particular the events of December 2011, altered the course of my life and have haunted me for years. I feel that I paid with my life for the events that transpired that fateful day we had to relive in federal court. I never wanted this. For many years, I could not tell my story and lived in fear. Fear of Puff and fear of how I would feed my son. About a year and a half ago, HSI case agents found me and asked me what happened. Those agents changed my life, and I would like to say that the Southern District of New York is the epitome of prestige and professionalism. I was handled with the ultimate care. But testifying publicly in front of Puff and his supporters was one of the hardest moments of my life. Every last word you heard from me was the truth. Yet I felt, and to be honest, still feel like I had to fight to prove I am a victim. Because the purpose of kidnapping me wasn't for S trafficking. What it was for was something more serious, more sinister and grave. Violence and absolute power, unchecked in the ultra rich and famous. It's insane to me that to all the things that people heard, 2 counts of prostitution of men is the only thing that remained on the table. I wanted to speak up, tell the truth, and do the right thing when I asked to testify. But I am afraid that women and girls in America feel less protected than ever watching what just happened. The lesson seems to be that we should not speak up, not call law enforcement for help, not say anything, but instead keep our head down and try to make a way regardless of what happens to us. I am afraid this may be the only realistic way to proceed in the modern world. The last ray of light is that you provide justice to us. You have a chance to finally help him know he cannot just do what he wants to people. There are repercussions and consequences. He cannot just destroy people's lives. Karma will come back in hundredfold ways. I would like Sean Combs to serve additional time in a correctional institution. I truly believe that serving more time will save Puff's life, as time away from his money, drugs, and power is the only punishment he will recognize. I hope Puff has life on the other side of his time to make good on the changes he knows he has to make, to spend time with his family, and get a chance to correct the damage he has so recklessly done to so many people who only meant well by him. Thank you, Your Honor, for your time, consideration, and for hearing us. Finally, God bless Capricorn Clark. So this is Capricorn's letter, and let's continue. All right, so this letter comes from a chef that used to work for him called Chef Jordan. Her name is, I guess, Chef Jordan Atkinson. And she wrote quite a lot. Okay, these people are really, 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 really giving it up. My name is Jordan Shatan Atkinson, and I was Sean Combs' personal chef from summer of 2007 through the spring of 2010. During my time, I can say that I was extremely overworked, underpaid, mentally abused, exploited, and at one point, I was assaulted by Sean Combs. Not only was I exploited by him, I was also exploited by his HR executive staff. Throughout my time there, they would constantly manipulate me into silence and staying in my position. By saying they would help to ensure I had days off, there was also a time in which they told me to spearhead the creation of Ciroc flavors. I was the one who chose, sampled, and tweaked the flavors throughout their inception, for which I was never compensated for. This was the most toxic and abusive workplace environment I have ever been in my entire career. It has been extremely traumatizing to relive all of this. It was hard to live through the first time around in my mid 20s. Now in my mid 40s, a lot of things I was too young and naive to understand, but the reality of it all is cemented in my mind now. I have spent the past year and a half in a constant flight state or flight mode, and am currently trying to heal and repair all of the damage. There was also a time in which Sean Combs threatened my life to keep me silent about his abuse towards Cassandra Ventura Fine. I have a journal from this time that I never read until Cassie's case came out in November of 2023. And it was like opening a Pandora's box, reading what my 20-year-old self endured. I was there to witness the start of Sean Combs and Cassie's relationship. This has been an extremely traumatizing time in my life the past year and a half. Having to unearth the past and relive it all again, I never forgot what I experienced during my time there, but I for sure buried it in order to survive. I've spent the past 18 years building my career in the high-profile sector, and this case has destroyed the life I worked so hard to create. When you become personal staff to high-profile people, you become part of a secret society. Discretion is the foundation. I didn't willingly participate in this case. What I recognize now, this is what happens with collective silence. My silence gave Sean Combs the space and time to grow into a more violent criminal. When I started working with Sean Combs, he and Cassandra were in the grooming phase. That is what it was in my eyes. She was 19 and he was 36. There were lavish dinners, shopping sprees, etc., all in the guise of creating a new artist. Sean was working her down, like men with money do. I was there in Miami when their working relationship turned romantic. During that weekend, I saw Cassandra provided copious amounts of rugs. I encountered her extremely high, out of her mind, and I offered her food to help bring her down. I witnessed Sean cursing his assistant David James out for not having condoms on the yacht. I remember thinking it was crazy and gross. Like, why is he so mad about condoms not being on the yacht? It's never that serious. It stuck out in my mind because that's when I knew this was no longer a working relationship. They were both extremely high the whole weekend. And really, thereafter, I saw Sean abuse prescription meds, weed, and ecstasy. Throughout those early months, it was heavy rug use. I saw him be extremely controlling, and I would say there was an obsessive nature about them. He would go on binges, and he wouldn't let any of us sleep, let alone get any breaks. I was working 17 to 21 hours a day, 7 days a week. I worked for almost 2.5 to 3 months straight until I had my first day off. He screamed and cursed at me when he saw me having casual conversations with Cassie. He said that I wasn't supposed to be talking to her if it wasn't about food. He also cursed me out when he saw me speaking to guests at one of his parties. He was watching me from across the room. Then he pulled me aside and said that I wasn't supposed to be talking to his friends, that he didn't work all these years for me to come and steal his relationships. Diddy would curse me out if I fed people without his permission. He made me feel like I had to look at the floor and not make eye contact with guests. I'd say like a pimp does to his women. During this time in November 2007, while at the Miami estate, I witnessed Sean Combs get aggressive and borderline violent with the estate manager, Amanda. He was enraged by the fact that Amanda was allowing her house staff to eat. When SC questioned her about it, she lied and said she never told me to feed them. In April of 2008, at the Alpine, New Jersey estate, Sean Combs physically assaulted me. We got into a heated argument and I quit, which enraged him. He kept saying I couldn't effing quit on him. As I was walking out of the house, he was following me, screaming, cursing, and berating me. Once the door was open, Sean Combs used all of his might to push me out the door. I went flying in the air and ended up on my elbows and butt. There were 2 steps to get up into the house, so it was a pretty hard fall. I called the police but hung up. I called HR and told them I was going to sue him. Ultimately, HR told me that I would be blackballed and my career would be over if I sued him. They said that Sean had the power to blackball me and would end my career when it just started. I chose my career and I stayed quiet. I left for a few months but was asked to come back. I assumed this would never happen again, that SC would apologize and that they would find help so I can get off days. HR said they would look at budgets for a pay increase. At this time, I was only making $65K. I wasn't working after I left, so when they called, I went back, said, apologized, but none of the other things ever happened. In 2008 or 2009, they have this sentence that's redacted. It says, Genevieve called the office and I went to the kitchen phone to call 911. I was told to hang up and that they would send his private doctors over. I was told to leave. The incident was minimized. HR said that SE had a reaction to his prescription meds and alcohol. I told HR I knew what an redacted was, but I left it alone. SC had some of his prescriptions added to my prescription pickups a few times in Miami. Both these incidents were example of how I assume rich people do things so that the public doesn't find out their personal business, not understanding that some of this was illegal. In 2009 in LA, I was informed by SC Security Bonds that Sean Combs brutally beat Cassie and that Bonds thought SC was going to kill Cassie. I was shocked as Bonds detailed the beating. He said that SC was punching her in the head and stomping her out inside the car. At one point, Cassie ran from the car, was dragged by SC through the concrete back into the car. Genevieve, the assistant, was in the car and she was trying to break it up too. Bonds was concerned about Genevieve and said that she was hyperventilating. Bonds asked me to check on Genevieve. When I went to check on Jen, she acted like she didn't know what I was talking about. So I left it alone and went back to my post in the kitchen. Sean Combs came screaming and cursing into the kitchen. Chef, why are you in my MFing business? What goes on in my relationship is my MFing business. I will effing end you if you tell anyone. I took this as he would kill me. And you better not tell anyone in the office either, which made me realize HR told him. I called them about the incident in Miami with Amanda. Up to that point, I didn't know that HR told him about me reporting the Miami incident. I believed then that SC would kill me if I told anyone he was beating Cassie. So I remained quiet. A day or two later, his assistant Genevieve and I took a bag to Cassie at the London hotel. I saw bruises on her face and arms. We never discussed it. We acted like nothing happened. Over the course of my time working with Sean, I saw hotel rooms be set up with lights, sheets, baby oil, and Astroglide. I had always assumed it was freaky things going on, but never knew the extent. I dare not ask either. I saw Sean Combs yell, scream, and berate staff, artists, employees, and girlfriends. He was always mentally and physically abusive. I saw Cassie's bruised on two other occasions in Miami and LA, but never questioned it. Sean Combs weaponized food, sleep, and breaks. We were not allowed breaks. We often snuck to eat. I would get cursed out if I asked to go home for the day. I wasn't allowed to leave for the day unless he said I could. As I type this, my heart breaks for the younger version of myself. I saw Sean Combs create rug-fueled environments for artists, executives, and his girlfriends. I saw the aftermath of S binges in NYC, Jersey, Miami, LA, and the Hamptons. I believe the heavy rug use and coercion in order for him to get his way with his participants. He was using rugs with Cassie on day one of their consummation. I'm not sure you could ever be a willing participant under those circumstances. The rug use was far beyond recreational. SC was also having S relations with blank, which to me was indeed an added layer. Child, Miss Chef ain't proofread nothing. Okay, I'm trying to read over the typos, honey. She said, which to me was an added layer of control. Someone in her innermost circle keeping tabs on her and also keeping secrets from her, weaponizing her most coveted friendship. I'm not sure Cassie ever knew about this betrayal. I'm like, which friend was it? Why it gotta be redacted? Anyways, over the years, I witnessed all of his assistants break down and they each started abusing rugs and or alcohol in order to get through the workday. David started using rugs and then they got stuff redacted. Girl, I guess they saying you saying too much over here. That wasn't said in the trial, honey. Okay, so it says Genevieve, I'm not sure, but after the 2009 beating in LA, blank, 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 she left not long after. I would binge drink when I was told I was off and smoke weed to calm my nerves. My therapist would say I was self-medicating with the weed. On March 20th, 2024, the feds showed up at my door in Atlanta, Georgia. I was terrified, and I refused to speak to them without a lawyer present. I was served with a grand jury subpoena before they left my home. By April 4th, Sean Combs knew I was contacted by the feds. Even though I had not testified yet, this terrified me. By April 11th, Sean Combs' lawyer, Aaron Dreyer, left a voicemail stating that they knew I was contacted by law enforcement and that Sean wanted to offer to cover my legal fees. I did not respond. Immediately, I called my lawyers. They instructed me to disregard it. They said they would send out a cease and desist. On April 15th, Aaron texted me about the voicemail and stated in a text that they knew I was contacted and reiterated that Sean wanted to cover my legal fees. I was extremely terrified because how did Sean Combs even know I was contacted? Now, I didn't trust him or the government. I didn't know what was going on. I felt like my life was in danger. On April 17th/18th, my Cadillac was broken into. My alarm system was tripped up. All the personal identifying paperwork in my glove compartment was taken out and neatly placed on my passenger seat. All the contents in the middle console, which had a knife and jewelry, which were also all laid out. The only thing stolen was my dog bag. My dog is like my child. I took this as witness tampering and intimidation. In my mind, this was a clear threat. I called the police and filed a police report. I stated that the feds were at my house 2 weeks prior, that I believe this was intimidation because the person at the center of the case didn't want me talking. I don't have proof that this was Sean Combs' doing, but I firmly believe that it was him. He was sending me a message, letting me know how easy it was to touch me if he wanted to. By this time, I was being asked for months to be a part of a documentary about Sean Combs, and I kept declining. I decided after Sean Combs made contact with me through his lawyers that I would do the documentary as a form of protection for myself in case anything more happened. To me, I wanted it on record that he assaulted me and that I knew of the brutal 2009 assault of Cassandra Ventura Fine, which is detailed on page 14 of her lawsuit against him. Sean Combs never denied that 2009 assault. He just threatened to end me, to keep me silent. I took that as he would kill me. I accepted that he might have me killed for my participation in the documentary. Even now, I believe he could have me killed. After the 2016 brutal beating of Cassie was released, I realized that our collective silence only emboldened Sean Combs. He didn't get help. He didn't stop. He just got worse. The fact of the matter is, Sean Combs is an abusive maniac. He doesn't just physically, mentally, and financially abuse and exploit his girlfriends, but he does it to his staff as well. He has spent decades abusing almost everyone around him, unchecked. So many of us just wanted to create our dream careers, and Sean Combs had us living a nightmare. Reliving this all has been extremely traumatic. Seeing him essentially get off of the most serious offense is terrifying. This was a miscarriage of justice, in my opinion. For him to now say upon his release he wants to become a DV counselor is truly sick. Him and his legal team should be ashamed of themselves. This PR media tour his legal team is taking just further proves how much Sean Combs believes himself to be above the law and that he has no remorse for the harm he has caused any of us. Cassie said he R'd her. Mia said he R'd her. I believe he is a serial artist. We were both supposed to testify, but were ultimately removed last minute. Sean Combs likes to weaponize fatherhood, his children, and Kim Porter, when in reality, he blank, blank, blank. Where were his kids while he was being a menace to society all these years? Sean Combs is a billionaire, not a street-level pimp. He chose to use rugs to coerce women into becoming his own personal S-slaves. He used those recorded escapades to hold over their heads to keep them in check. He used his staff to get rugs to facilitate and cover up crimes. He kidnapped Capricorn Clark at Pew Pew Point. He was going to kill Kid Cudi. These things really happened. It's sick how it all minimized. Nothing about what any of us endured was normal. The RICO was there the whole time. Sean Combs got away with it. Instead of being satisfied that he essentially got off, he chooses to let his ego keep driving him. Instead of being thankful he and his team have decided to make a mockery out of all of his victims in the judicial system. It is for these reasons I believe Sean Combs should get the maximum sentence available. I don't believe he can ever be rehabilitated. He is a master manipulator. I don't think he should be allowed to live in NYC, NJ, LA, or Miami. He should have to relocate to the middle of nowhere, far away from the places he preyed on and harmed so many people. Not only do I fear for my safety, I fear for all the witnesses that participated in this case. I know Sean Combs to be a very dangerous and spiteful man with a long memory and a panache for paycheck. Thank you for your time and consideration. And then she put her signature. All right. And it says that she wrote this August 12th, 2025, honey. And that is all of the victim impact statements that they have submitted under this file.